Hi, Marcia here again, and welcome back to our series, the Candid Conversations and Business Tips. So as you know, we took a break for elections because we know that you were quite distracted, but we're back again because we still need to continue our learning. And so our session today is going to be on the art of delegation. And right now, as most of our teams are now working remotely, it becomes even more important for us to delegate, because this is now when we're going to have to trust that the work that our teams are doing at home, they're doing it and doing it as effectively and efficiently as possible. Because as businesses, we still need to maintain the level of productivity and profitability. So I'm going to go through the session today looking at the art of delegation, because not everybody masters this. We find that many leaders are still trying to do all the work for their team and are not being as effective in the process, and therefore gaining all the benefits of delegation. So I'm going to go through them. So the first thing I want us to recognize is, why should we delegate anyway? So I'm going to go through 6 main reasons why we should delegate before I go through the rules of delegation. And the first thing is to give yourself more personal time. Many of us have become slaves to our businesses, and as we're growing the businesses, what we're finding is that it's taking up more of our time. John Maxwell says, if you want to go fast, go by yourself. But if you want to go far, you have to walk with others. And so you will need to leverage the people in your company to allow you to be able to do what is most effective for you to do. So it's to give yourself more personal time. It's not meant for you to be doing everything in the business. Some of us have become the master of doing everything, head cook and bottle washer. The second reason is to give yourself the opportunity to do more and therefore to achieve more. Now, if you are the leader, you shouldn't be doing everything. See, when we coach our clients, we work with them first to look at what is it that they're doing on a day-to-day basis. And then once we've gotten a list of that, we then look at what are the things that we can take off of their plate that is not something that they're required to do. So it gives them more time to be able to focus on the growth of the business, on strategic planning, on leading and developing their people. So it allows you to be able to do more and achieve more from the business perspective, and as well in your life. And therefore it allows you to be able to grow the business more effectively. The other reasons are, the first set of reasons I just gave you was about the benefit to you. And that's what most people think of delegation as being, there's a benefit to me. But I want you to understand that if you are leading a team, leadership is influence, and part of what you have to do in order to leverage people is to educate them and help them to develop to their greatest potential. Which means another role of delegation is to improve the productivity and efficiency, not only of yourself, but of your key people. So there are people reporting to you. And you want to help them to develop their own skills to allow them to grow and to develop to their full potential. So by improving their productivity and efficiency, you are helping them to grow and develop themselves, because you are teaching them how to accept more responsibility. Because the reason why we're not letting it go in us, we think that, oh my God, if I give it up and give it to someone else, they're never going to be able to do it as good as I am, and the whole business is going to fall down. And that's not true. So part of delegation is to help your team to accept more responsibility and therefore to become more valuable to you. because they are achieving the desired outcomes in the business. So let's look at the key steps of delegation, and I want to go through them. So the first step of delegation is this. Before you delegate, use this test. And I want you to think about it. What is the absolute worst that could happen if I delegated to them? And can I live with that? Because sometimes we think that even if it isn't done exactly at this way, that the whole business is going to fall down. And I want you to think through it first. Is this a task that if I delegated it and it wasn't done to the perfection or to the way I wanted it, could I live with the worst thing that could happen? Because if that is so, then you may want to say, okay, yes, I'm willing to look at delegating this task. Now, what is the cost of not delegating? Now, this is the important one. And I've seen many a business owner that we've approached to coach or have come to us for coaching, and they're approaching what we call burnout. They're exhausted. So what is the cost of not delegating? So I want you to compare the cost to you of your time per hour. Now, this is a concept I want you to grasp, and it is this. What is your hourly rate? And I want you to sit down and think about it. What is the salary, if you're paying yourself one, that you want to earn and to pay yourself in a year, and then work that back to what would that be in terms of per hour? So what is the cost to you of your time per hour versus the cost per hour of a team member doing the task? So remember, the salary that they're earning and their hourly rate versus yours. And compare that. Or even if you got somebody else to do it, maybe you outsource the task. And then decide if the job should be delegated or not. And one thing I learned very early is this. I am not going to do anything that is not worth my hourly rate. Because one thing you need to value is your time. As a business owner, you need to think about, what are the things that I, as the owner, should spend my time working on that is worth my hourly rate? I'm going to tell you what some of them are. You are strategic. You need to be planning. You need to be ensuring that the marketing and positioning of the brand is being done. I don't mean you to do it, but that's a very important role of yours. You need to be also managing the KPIs within your business. That is, what are the outcomes? You need to be looking at the profitability indicators, the efficiency indicators, productivity indicators. You need to have a dashboard that you're reviewing. And then the other thing you need to be doing as an owner is spending time ensuring that you have the right people in the right seats on the bus and that you're training and developing them. So you need to be focusing on what are your priority issues. What are the things that you as an owner need to focus on? And everything else should come off of your plate. Now, I know in the beginning it's going to be hard to do that as you're building the business. But as you slowly build the business, one of the things you need to be doing is starting to remove from your plate. If you outsource some functions, if you even have somebody come on part-time, but you need to be taking some things that are not worth your hourly rate, giving it to someone else that you could pay less so that you can focus, not go off and kick yourself off, kick up your foot and lie on the beach now. That's not what I'm saying. But so that you can use that time now to develop and to grow the business and to plan high priority items. So you need to understand, if you're not doing that, that's the cost of you not delegating, because you are not being as efficient as you should be, and it's costing you. Now, the third step is this. Let's look at the process of delegation to a staff member. So I'm going to go through these key things. Follow this process. Before you delegate anything, you need to have a clearly defined set of policies in place that the staff member can refer to for guidance. So if you are going to ask them to do a task, then you have to be clear, first of all, on how the task must be done. You need to have a policies, you need to have the process around it. And so if you cannot, in your own mind, start first in your mind and it doesn't remain there, you then need to document it. So before you delegate it, step is you write it down step by step, how this task is to be done, what the outcomes are, and by when things have to be done. So set a policies and rules that the staff member can refer to for guidance. That's how you delegate. Then the next thing is you have to ensure that the person has the necessary skills and ability and training. Now, I need to be clear on this. If it is something that requires them to use a spreadsheet properly, please don't go and delegate to someone who has no idea how to use Excel. Or if it is that you need them to prepare a presentation, they don't know how to use PowerPoint. So it's important that you delegate the task to someone who has the skills and the training needed to do the task. And if they don't, then you need to spend some time, and yes, work once, get paid forever. You're going to have to sit down and train them. Train them on how you want the task to be done. Upskill them, teach them how to do it so that they can do the task properly. So give them and then let them know what resources are available to them. Where can they go? What can they look at? What site can they go to? What book should they go? Which person can they lean on to help them? It's important, folks, that we do not delegate to someone who doesn't have the skill to do it and you don't train them, because that is what we call abdication, and that leads to a lack of trust, because what the employee then starts to think is that you set them up. And by the way, I'm going to tell you something. The opposite of delegation is abdication. And when you abdicate, what you're actually doing is setting up the person because you haven't given them the task, a task that they have the skills to do. And if you didn't define how to do it, if you didn't sit down and actually write it out and frame out exactly the process they're to follow, then they're going to say, you set them up. You gave them unclear instructions and they didn't have the skills to do it. And then the third thing is give them the responsibility to take the action required. So once you have defined the rules, you have laid out the process, you have given them something to refer to, very important, get it out of your head. You're giving them the skills and the training needed to do the task. Then you give them the responsibility to take the action required to complete the task. So you let them know that now that I've taught you, now that I've clearly defined it, we have sat down and I've gone through it, which means you need to clearly communicate, and how you know that you have clearly communicated is because you're going to ask them to confirm that they understand everything that you have said, and you ask them, are there any questions that you have? That is important in the thing called communication. So when you're delegating something, remember, you want them to do the task as good as possible. It's your responsibility, therefore, to make sure that you have clearly set out all of these things. And then once you have trained them, once you have gone through the process with them, once they have repeated to you, that's another way to ensure they understand that they can repeat to you what you have said, and you have asked for clarification, then now you know that they are clear on what is expected. So now you give them the responsibility to take the action required. Another very important part of this as well is that you now need to let them know when you delegate something to them, by when. So remember, in leadership and in getting anything done in any company and to be productive and efficient, it's who does what and by when. So you have just defined in the delegation process the who you have assigned the task to. You have told them what is the task that needs to be done and how it is to be done. So the next thing is by when. And especially when you have teams working remotely, you need to be clear. So if you're going to assign something and you're going to have them and they're working remotely, you need to be clear that the procedures are clear, the process is clear, they have all the tools necessary to do it, and then the missing ingredient is by when should you complete the task. Importantly as well, is give them a clear picture of the outcome you want. So at the end of the task, what should it look like? So for example, I had a manufacturer, a printery that I was coaching. And they got in some team members who, because they were under severe pressure to turn a job out, they had to quickly hire some people in and had to teach them how to do the task very quickly. Now, these were not as educated people as you would like, as a regular team workers. But guess what? They needed them to complete the job. So what they also had to make very clear to them is that how will the completed job look? So they actually prepared in advance. So they sat with the person, created one of the products that they were going to assemble in the fabrication department, so that at the end of it, the person had what does a completed product look like. So that when they were to repeat the task, they could then look back at the finished product to ensure, does my product look like this one? Now that's in manufacturing, but it's the same thing in any task, in a service, whatever. You need to give them a clear picture of the outcome that you want. If it is a cash flow forecast, it must be clear that at the end of the 13 weeks in the forecast period, you're able to see clearly what our position is. Whatever the outcome is, you have to give them a clear picture of that. And then give them feedback so they know if they're producing what you want, which means part of the process is, folks, that in addition to the time frame, in addition to letting them have a clear picture of what outcome you want, you need to have check-ins. So folks, if you assign somebody a task and you said it's due next week Tuesday or next week Friday, the deadline is next week Friday, you have to have this. Do not wait until next week Friday to then go and check on the day that it is due if it was done correctly. You have assigned it to somebody new. You have assigned it to somebody who is not used to doing the task. So what you need to do is say to them first, do a draft of this first, submit it to me so I can look at it to ensure that it is correct before we actually complete. So what you're doing is you're going to have check-ins. And what that allows a person to feel is a level of trust. Trust that, you're not just leaving me out here by myself trying to figure out how to do this thing, but instead you're going to have check-ins to ensure that I'm doing it. You can correct me along the way, so by the time the task is finished, it will be done the way you wanted it. So folks, do not just leave the process to the person. So step 4 in delegation is keeping control, and there are 2 levels. You can have level 1, where the team member is asked to look at all the options before they then make a decision and report back to you for your final okay. So remember, you've taught somebody, you're delegating things. Now you can have situations where you can say to persons, okay, I'm delegating this area or task to you. And sometimes, and in that process, you'll have to make decisions. But before you make decisions, I want you to come back to me on your final options, and then I will give you my okay before any action is taken. So remember, what you're trying to do is help to develop them. So what you're saying is, give me all the options. Remember in leadership, if you keep telling people exactly what to do, then you will forever be doing the task yourself. Forever. They're going to keep coming to you. What I must do, what I must do, what I must do. So as leaders, we have to be helping people to think on their feet, giving them the skills and the training, giving them the confidence and saying, listen, I want you to come to me. I'm delegating this to you. And sometimes in this, there'll be a number of options that you'll be faced with. And what I want you to do is before you make a decision, come to me. So what you're saying is think on your feet and come to me with the options. I am not going to be the one giving you the ideas. You come to me with the options. And then I will review with you before any action is taken and I will give the final okay. Then there is the level 2 where you keep in control. And this is where the team member is asked to do as above, as you have outlined it to them, take the action, and then report back the results of the action for review by you. Now you recognize on this level 2 now, you're displaying way more confidence, and you may have to decide that this may be something that you're doing with someone who is at a higher level. So you'll have different levels. So level 2 is somebody who within an organization, you can say, okay, I'm going to give you the authority to make the decisions and then just report back to me the results of the action for review by you. So what were the results of the action that you took? That's a level 2. And then you have level 1 where you're saying, no, you don't make the decisions. However, give me the options that you see possible. Let's discuss it and I will make the decision. And that is where you will need to assess the team member to determine where they're at. Now I want to look at a very important thing, and that is abdication versus delegation. So this first column here is all about delegation. And the second one here is abdication. Now, a lot of times what's happening is that most people are abdicating if you don't follow the process I said before. So let's look at why it is important to delegate versus abdicating. Having outlined everything I said, when you delegate, folks, you're building trust and respect because you gave them clear instructions. You gave them all the resources that they needed, which included the tools, the training, and the leadership in that process. You gave them the time frame by when it was due, so you don't come back and say, oh my gosh, it was due next week, but you never told me it was due next week. So with delegation, if you follow the rules I said before, then you build more trust and respect. However, if you abdicate by asking someone to do a task that you have not outlined, you have not clearly told them how and what the outcomes are, by when you want it, and you have given it to someone who does not have the skills necessary, and you did not ask them for clarification or that they understood what you had said. What that leads to is distrust, because they say you set them up, and lack of respect, because you keep doing this to them. And then you blame them when it is not done correctly, and then you take the job back in a huff. What else does delegation, if done correctly, it leads to greater communication. With delegation in the way I spoke, you notice there's a lot of communication with the person. All those areas, and the person is allowed to ask questions and to seek clarification. But with abdication, where some people just leave the task to the person with no communication in there, no clarification, then abdication leads to very little communication. I'm going to say to you, there are 3 things that we find is an issue anytime we step in to coach a client. The three areas are, and I can close my eyes, for the last 10 years, these have been the three areas that people always have an issue with. The first one is respect. You don't respect me. Because if you respected me, you would not treat me this way and set me up. Secondly, teamwork and communication. So respect, teamwork, and communication. And communication usually it comes in this order. Respect, communication, and teamwork are the issues. And it's because we seem to think that people can read our minds. And they can't. And let me tell you something. One thing I've learned in leadership is repetition is important. You need to keep hearing yourself saying things over and over again, especially the vision and mission of the business. People need to be clear on why they're there and what they're supposed to do and what are we all working together to achieve. Communication is important. Because the bigger you grow a business is the more you're going to have to delegate. And let me tell you something too. Not just to the leaders below you, but they're also going to have to learn how to delegate to the people below them. Because the bigger an organization gets, is the greater the depth of the structure and the more communication needs to occur. So you need to start it from now. Third reason is higher productivity. Now, folks, if I said to you that you have greater communication, the person is clear on what it is that you're asking them to do, they have a roadmap to follow, they know that they can come to you if they have any questions, they know by when they need to complete the task, and they also have check-ins to ensure that they're on the way, then what will happen is that you have a more productive person. So think about right now in COVID. You have people working at home who are used to working in an office, maybe with the support of other team members, tools that they could easily access. You're going to have to practice more delegation now, spending more time defining the way things are to be done. So that when people are on their own, as they are now at home, that they're productive because they have a system to follow. I had a team member who left and handed over to another team member. And what she actually did was, as a part of the training process, it wasn't just written, there weren't just checklists, she also trained, recorded the training session so that the person could go back and replay the recording of the training session so they were clear. In addition to, especially because it was something that they had to be going through a system, so they were able to see how it was done. So one of the things we have to do in this delegation is to use as many tools and resources as possible. Because one thing you want to make sure is that when that person sits down to do the job, they know how to do it. Because when you abdicate, which is the opposite again, you get low productivity. And why? Because you know what happens? The person goes back to their desk and they're sitting there because they're not really clear on what you said. You didn't really define the task properly. You didn't really say what resources they had. And first of all, I don't even know how to do a formula in Excel. So how am I going to do this task? And so they sit at their desk trying to figure it out. Not sure who they should go to, what resources they have available, and therefore that leads to low productivity. And not only that, let's go to the other one. Jobs are completed on time and more profitable with delegation, because if people are clear on what they're to do, by when and how to do it, then they'll complete the jobs on time and they will be profitable. Because when not, the other issue is jobs are delayed and over budget. Why? Because I have low productivity. Why? Because I'm sitting there trying to figure out how to do it. And it also is delayed because in many instances, I would not have done it correctly, which means I have to do it over again, and I have to do it over again. And if it is something that involves materials, as happens many times in manufacturing companies or in services industries, then what can end up happening is that the job that was priced at a certain amount because you expected the expenses to be here is now no longer as profitable because one, they made errors with the job and had to rework it or spoilage, and then because of time. So remember something, somebody's time is also important. So they spend more time finishing this project. So it is now actually over budget because their costs, the time cost, labor cost on this particular project has now exceeded, and not only that, they're not available to work on the other tasks that they should be completing, all because of abdication. Let's look at delegation again, number 5. When we delegate, so we have trust and respect is one, we have greater communication, there is higher productivity, jobs are completed on time and more profitable. So what do you think the outcome is? Because remember, you're running a business, and the purpose of the business is so that you can serve your customers and give them the service and the products that they expect and even exceed that. And so as a result, you end up with happy clients. Now, let's look at abdication. So let's look at all the things that have occurred so far. There's distrust, lack of respect, very little communication. They're afraid to go back to you to ask questions because they may feel stupid because you didn't even give them the option in the first place. The third one is they have lower productivity. The fourth one is jobs are delayed and over budget, and as a result, it leads to number 5. We now have disgruntled clients, people who are not happy with us because of how long it took to complete the task, and that the jobs are delayed. So something that was supposed to have been delivered today, and now have it 2 weeks over the time originally promised. And so now they're unhappy. Now let's look at number 6. So we have build trust, greater communication with delegation, higher productivity, jobs completed on time, happy clients, and then what do we get? Future work. That's why we always say that marketing begins way before the first purchase. Because how well you do your job, how well you provide your service, how happy your clients are determines whether they come back again and become what we call raving fans and tell others about you. Yeah. So we need to remember that everything rises and falls on our leadership. Our leadership. It starts with us first. Are we abdicating and leaving our people to flounder out there? And then when you have unhappy customers and no work, you blame the team? Or are we taking ownership, accountability, and responsibility and being the leaders who say, listen, I'm going to make sure that I delegate to my team so that we can develop them to their highest level of productivity so that we can be profitable and have happy customers who will refer others to us, and they will also keep coming back again and again. Because with abdication, trust me, when you have a disgruntled client, they will never return and they'll tell others to never do business with you again. So folks, what I want us to understand is this, that when we delegate instead of abdicating, what we end up with is greater synergy on the team. We have things coming together where people are gelling, where all of our team members are in sync, and everything is geared towards delivering to the customer as efficiently and effectively as possible, because that's the bottom line. And not only that, remember that in the process of delegating, it's not just about you. Yes, it's going to create more time for you, which is what most people focus on. But remember, the main purpose of delegation, which leaders and developing people, is so that you help them to become the best them that they can be, because you are teaching them how to do new tasks. You're showing them how to do it correctly. You're helping them to become way more productive. And not only that, you're showing them how to take responsibility. And then with all of that, you're showing that you trust them. Because if you are going to try to micromanage everything in the organization, you'll not be able to grow. So folks, that's the end of our session today. Now, we would normally have our candid conversation this Thursday. We won't have it this Thursday. Instead, we're going to be having that next week Thursday. Remember, we have that along with Ian Nita, Arlene Martin from Ian Nita from the Jamaica Chamber of Commerce, and our Arlene Martin. So we'll start that next week Thursday, and we'll be continuing with different industries as we continue to try to deal with the challenges of COVID. We have to do this together. So with the Chamber, the Voice of Business, and ActionCOACH, us here saying, Jamaica Abundance through business re-education, we're going to continue to work hand in hand to help Jamaica. So I want to invite those of you who have not yet been to any of our coaching programs to join me this Thursday at 2 o'clock for our 7 must-dos to grow your business during challenging times. Now, folks, everybody is trying to figure out how to get through this. So I'm going to make sure that we send a link out. As a matter of fact, it's on our Facebook page everywhere. It's on our emails. So if you had signed up for this, you're in our database as well. If you knew about this program, but we have all our posts running. So folks, at 2 o'clock on Thursday, September 17th, join me for the 7 must-dos. The 7 must-dos to grow your business during challenging times. It's not an easy time, and part of that is knowing how to delegate. That's a very important must-do, because you need your team to help you. Companies don't succeed, people do. So see you on Thursday at 2 o'clock. Make sure you sign up for it, register for it, and I will see you on Thursday. All right, so folks, have a great day. Keep safe and healthy till I meet with you again next week, Tuesday, for our next business tip. All right, take care. Bye-bye.